The hardest part of writing a load test script is knowing where to start. But what if I told you that you could go from a simple browser recording to running a production-ready load test in the cloud, all in 10 minutes and with no prior load testing experience? That's what I'm going to show you in this video with Gatling Studio. Now, as a principal software engineer and tech educator, I've used Gatling for many years and taught it to thousands of students in my courses. The biggest problem I always hear with the tool is, where do I start? Starting a Gatling script from an empty editor is tough, even if you know what you're doing. For anyone with limited coding experience, it often feels completely overwhelming. But now, thanks to Gatling Studio, it's much easier to get going. Let me quickly explain what Gatling Studio is. And if you're familiar with Gatling, you may be curious what's new here. Traditionally, creating a Gatling load test means writing a fair amount of code. It's not that hard, but it does take time and experience. Gatling Studio is a standalone desktop app that records real browser journeys and turns them into clean, production-ready Gatling simulations. You record a user journey in your browser just by using the application as normal, and Studio turns that recording into real Gatling script code. It takes minutes instead of hours. There's a few key problems that Gatling Studio solves. Blank page syndrome is gone. You no longer have to start from nothing. Time waste is reduced. Recording your browser takes minutes, while manually scripting takes hours. Realistic behavior. It captures what users actually do, not what you think they do. And accessibility. You don't need to be a Gatling expert to get started. Now, full disclosure, this video is sponsored by Gatling. They reached out because I have a lot of experience with their tool, but I haven't actually used Gatling Studio until now. So what you're seeing is my genuine first impression as someone who's done plenty of manual Gatling scripting. Anyway, enough talking. Let's jump over to the Gatling website, download the tool and see it in action. Okay, so I'm here on the Gatling Studio product page, which you can go to just from this address up here. And we can look through here, we can read through about the tool, we can learn about its features, etc. But for this video, let's just jump in and let's just download it and get to start using it right away. So I'm going to scroll down a bit here and then we'll find this download Gatling Studio button. Here you can just choose the version that you want to download for. I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to download the Mac installer. So I've installed Gatling Studio now and I've just launched it, and now we need to log in. So if you've already got a Gatling Enterprise account, you can just click here to log in. If you don't have an account, just click here to create an account, fill in a couple of fields, and then you can start a trial account and it will let you access Gatling Enterprise and Gatling Studio. And then once you've logged in, you should land here on the recording page. So we can see that we don't have any recordings yet, so we need to create our first one. But before we want to do that, I just wanted to give you a quick tour of the application that we're going to test in this tutorial. So this is the site that we're going to be testing. This is just a really simple mock e-commerce site. This is a site that Gatling maintained. You can use this just to practice Gatling scripting against. So again, it's just a really simple e-commerce store. We can click up here to just go to the about page. We can go back to products. We could add any of these products to our cart. So we just click add to cart here. We could also search for a product. So I might search for a bottle, for example, see all of the bottles. We can log in. So if we click on the login button up here, we get our details already populated. Just click submit and then I've been logged in. And we can also check out our cart as well. So I'll just click on the basket here and then click on checkout, and then it simulates just running a checkout for us. So again, it's a really simple website, but it's really useful just for practicing Gatling scripting. So we're going to use this to run with Gatling Studio just to record a practice user journey. Okay, so I'm back in Gatling Studio. Before we begin, I just want to show you the settings page here. So this is where you set up your browser. If you've got Chrome installed, it should be able to detect this automatically. Otherwise, you can change to another browser here. Just make sure that you're using a Chromium-based browser. So Google Chrome probably works best, or any other Chromium-based browser is fine. I'm just going to use Google Chrome for this, so I'll leave it selected as that. So I'll head back to recordings. So I want to record a new user journey. So it's hopefully already populated this E-Comm Gatling.io site for us. So I'm just going to click start recording. So the browser is launched and it's now recording all of our user journey. Okay, so let's first click on the about page up here. Let's next click on login, just to log in. Again, I'll use my admin user details that are pre-filled. I'm just going to add a product to the cart. So I'm just going to add in this nice hip bag. Let's now do a search. So again, I'll just search for bottles. Let's click on the actual bottle as well, just to go to that actual page. And click on add to cart. Now let's open our basket and we'll just click checkout. Okay, that should do. Let's go back to Gatling Studio now. So back here in Gatling Studio, I'm going to click stop and save the recording. We need to give our recording a name, so I'll just call it Gatling Studio demo. And now we can see a summary of all of the different requests that we made. So we can see all of the get calls that we made, a couple of post calls here when we logged in, viewed the cart, etc. So basically all of the steps of our user journey have been recorded here, and we can just go through and check them. So what we can do now is we can turn this recording straight into a Gatling script. So to do that, I just click on create scenario from recording, and then that opens the filter recording page. So the first thing that it's done is that it's hidden all of the static resources from the user journey down the bottom. So if I click on this one, this toggle here, we can actually turn that back on. Now, traditionally, when you're running a load test, you don't really want to keep downloading the static resources. You normally just want to be making API calls, things like that. You don't really want to continuously keep downloading resources. So it's normally recommended to leave that toggle turned off. We can see as well over here, it's captured 2 different domains and we can filter on them. So one of the domains is the API calls and one of the domains is just to the actual Gatling website itself. So I'm going to leave both of these checked, but if we wanted to test, say, just the API, we could just leave that one selected, but I'll leave both of those checked. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and click filter the recording. And now we get this really nice preview page that's showing us all of the different calls that we made during our session. It's also showing the pause time that we had in between each of the calls as well, which is really useful to visualize. And one thing I'd really love to see here, maybe this will come in a future release, is being able to actually edit these pause times. I think that would be really cool to be able to actually just change the pause times here without doing it in the script, but maybe that's a feature that will come later. But that's all we should need to do. Now, to actually turn this into Gatling code, we just need to go up here and hit export project. It will ask us to choose a base URL. I'm going to use the API endpoint as our URL just because that's the one that we're making the most calls to. And then I'm going to hit export, and then that's going to create a Gatling project for us. So that's just created this zip file for us. I'm going to double click that to extract it. And then I'm going to open this project up in Visual Studio Code just so that we can talk through it. And here's our user journey that's been converted into Gatling code. Now, I know that if you don't know Gatling, this might look a little intimidating and scary, but honestly, we don't really need to change too much in here at all. This should pretty much just work as it is. But with that being said, I do just want to make a couple of small tweaks. So first thing I'm going to do is open the pom.xml file. So I want to change the artifact ID. This is just the name that's going to show up when we run the Gatling test. So I'm just going to change that to Gatling Studio Demo Project. And I'm also going to rename our simulation file. So instead of just calling it my simulation, I'm going to call it Gatling Studio Demo. So that's renamed the class in here as well. That's been renamed now to Gatling Studio Demo. The other thing that I just want to do is I just want to rename the transaction names. So this one here is when we call the home page. That one's fine, that can stay as home, but some of the other transaction names aren't that obvious, so I'd just like to just change a few of those. So this one here was when we search, so I'm just going to change that transaction name to search. This one here is when we call the session, so I'm just going to change that one to session. This one here was when we logged in. This here was when we called the cart. This here was when we did another search for the bottle. This here was just when we got a product. We made another call to the cart here, and this is where we checked out. The other thing that I want to do is set up our load test scenario. So at the moment, we're just running with one single user. I'm just going to change that to 10 users just so that it changes slightly, and so that when we're executing the test, we can kind of see that it looks like a proper performance test because we're executing with multiple users. Okay, I'll just save that file, and that should be all of the changes that we need to make. So the next thing now is running this script, and to do that, we're going to run this on Gatling Enterprise. In order to run it on Gatling Enterprise, we need to get an API key. So let me show you how to do that. So I've headed over to the Gatling Enterprise here. So again, when you signed up for Gatling Studio, you should get a login to this page. I'm going to go over to the left and I'll click on API tokens. I'm going to hit creates a new token. We need to give it a name. So I'll just call it Gatling token. For the organization role, we can just choose configure. And for the team roles, I'll just choose the default team and again, the configure role. So we hit save. And then we can see our API token has been created. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard. And then back in our project, to apply the API token, we can even set it as an environment variable, or we can just put it in our pom.xml file. So for here, I'm just going to show how to put it in the pom.xml file, just to keep it simple. So here under configuration, I just need to put API token, paste my token in, and then close the API token. So if you want to set it as an environment variable, I think it's Gatling Enterprise API token, but you can set it in either way. Okay, and in order to push the script up to Gatling Enterprise, I can just bring up a terminal and I can simply run mavnw Gatling Enterprise deploy. That should literally take a few seconds to run, and then our load testing script should be pushed up to Gatling Enterprise. Let's jump back over there. Now here on the sources page, I can see my Gatling Studio demo projects that we just pushed up. So let's go ahead and run a load test. So to do that, I'm going to go over here and click on simulations, click plus to create a new simulation. Let's choose test as code. I'm going to choose my Gatling Studio demo project that we just created. Click on create. Let's give it a name. So I'll say Gatling Studio Simulation. I'll choose our simulation. So that's this Gatling Studio demo. Now we need to configure our locations for the load test. So you can choose of any of these locations. I'm just going to choose London because that's nearest to me. I'll just leave it on one load generator for now, but you could add more load generators if you wanted to run a bigger test. There's some other optional fields here, so we could change the load generator parameters. So we could put in Java system properties or environment variables. We don't need to do that here. Under time window, we can set a ramp up and ramp down period if we want. And we can also set stop criteria on the test as well if we wish to, but I'll leave that off for this run. All right, that looks good. Let's click save and launch. There we go. And now our load test is starting up. So at first we'll build up the load test. It will then deploy it. So it will deploy it onto actual load injectors, and then it will run the actual load test while we sit here and watch it. While I'm waiting for that, I'm just going to give my run a name. So I'm just call it Gatling Studio Simulation 1. Okay, so our simulation is built successfully. It's now deploying to the cloud and getting ready to run the test. The deployment is now finished, and now it's running the load test in real time. So if we scroll down a bit, we can watch the test running. We can see the requests and responses per second, the response time percentiles. And so again, it's now running 10 concurrent virtual users doing that same user journey that we recorded in the browser a few minutes ago. Then after a bit of time, we get a message that our load test is finished. So we can head over now and have a look at the report. So again, this just gives us a graphical report on the load test, things like the requests and responses per second, other metrics like the response time distribution, errors per second, lots more graphs here on virtual users, connections, DNS, etc. So that's how to run a load test that we created in Gatling Studio in Gatling Enterprise. Before I close, let's be honest about what this tool does and where its limits are. Gatling Studio probably covers around 80% of the work, but I still needed to review and tweak the generated code. I renamed a few files, adjusted some think time, and set the scenario to use 10 virtual users. But it's important to emphasize that this is the first version of the tool. I'm confident that Gatling will keep improving it over time and make the process even easier. The team are actively asking for feedback on what users want, and knowing them well, I'm sure they'll be keen to add new suggestions. If you handwrite your Gatling scripts today, or if load testing feels too hard to start, then Gatling Studio is well worth a look. The time you save is significant. If you get stuck or you just want to learn more, then check out the Gatling docs and the support channels on their website. There's plenty of helpful material available. Alright, that's Gatling Studio. Browser recording to production load test in just a few minutes. If you'd like to try it out, remember you just need to have a Gatling Enterprise account in order to connect. No subscription or trial is needed. And if you have questions, whether about use cases, integrations, or anything else, leave them in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer, and I know the Gatling team also keeps an eye on them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.